What's good, broadcasters? Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Branding Banter, where you can get all that nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
I'm Meg Erber, Director of Sales at Proforma, and number 5 on the ASI Power 50.
I'm Sarah Goshgarian Unruh, National Sales Manager at Stalls, number 20 on the ASI Power 50.
And we're joined today by a very special guest, Michele Bell with ASI. Super excited to have you back. You're a former guest of our previous podcast, and really excited to have you back. We got a pretty fun episode today, I think. You know, it is an election year, so we're going to talk about that and how it relates to the promo industry. But Michele, before we get started, why don't we just do like a quick introduction of yourself? And maybe like a fun fact or two about yourself.
Ooh.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I am not at all on the Power 50 list, so congratulations to the people who are.
How is that possible?
Yeah, no. I don't like anybody from ASI being on any of our lists, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not either, Michele, so you're in good company. I mean, I'm just not cool enough to be on the list, but you know.
I have been at ASI for 28 years, which I cannot believe, and I always say I oversee everything at ASI that makes precisely zero money. So editorial, our education, and things like our special events like the Power Summit, and then also most recently what we do globally, so global alliances. And that mainly is because just I'm fascinated by the international marketplace. So, you know, I've been going to those shows overseas for I've been going to PSI for 25 years now. So it's definitely an emerging market. Fun facts about me. I would prefer to spend any and all of my time in France. I'm a complete Francophile. So yeah, love France.
I do too, actually. So I love that.
It's amazing. So Sarah, there's a show in Lyon, France, in the second week of February called CTCO, and it's fantastic. And I always go there and then spend an extra 4 days or so in Paris, and it's just fantastic. Yeah.
All right, so before we move on from that, I've got to ask a question, because I personally have never been to France, and I've never really called to go there. So what is it about France?
The coffee.
You know, it's the culture, it's the food, the wine, the culture. I always say even the most unattractive people are beautiful in France. Everybody's just got this great style and the history of it. I also, I love Italy, I love Spain, but there's something about French culture. So I had 4 years of French in high school. So I'm okay, but I want to be really fluent. So I'm doing those crazy. I'm one of those people who bought into the commercial hype of Babbel. So I try to do
Babbel,
half an hour. I try to do half an hour every night of Babbel, but it's tricky. Like it gets progressively more intricate and more complex really fast. So sometimes I'm not so great at it, but I'm trying. It's the accent, because you have to repeat back the accent and it records you. And my accent is not great. My French accent is not great.
All right, well, we're going to ask you to say something to us in French, because I've been watching this guy on TikTok, and he tells us all the bad words in Chinese, so I'm like practicing that. That's all I know.
Yeah,
the first time I saw you and I met, Meg, it was La Coup de Foudre, love at first sight.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've never used Babbel. I don't know how that works, but I have used Rosetta Stone, and I know that it uses like immersive software imagery and all that good stuff to sort of help teach you. So maybe is Babbel the same way?
Exactly the same way, yeah. But it's clearly, Jeff, it's using AI because it's responding quickly to the things that I'm not good at and hitting me with that more and more. So it's very responsive and very intuitive.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So 2024, it's an election year, and there's some big news with promo and how the election year is related to promo. So where do you want to take this conversation first, Michele?
So I think, we can just kind of level set and say that every 4 years, $250 million comes into this industry because of the promo spent on political merch. And that's at the local, the state, and national level. So that has jumped up significantly since 2016. Why? because Donald Trump's, the red, now famous MAGA hat, which, Jeff, I mean, you're in headwear, you know the power of that hat. I mean, this is the gold standard that every political candidate wants to have, because it has now become so iconic and so much in the zeitgeist, right? That the minute you see a red hat, your mind just goes to Donald Trump. So if you're a political candidate, who doesn't want that kind of recognition, that kind of, immediate, the way it resonates with the populace, so that really has been a game changer insofar as how people use political merch. I would say that before that, there were the standards, right? There was signage, there were bumper stickers every year. I remember every 4 years we'd do an interview with Gill Studios, because that was their big, the amount that they would do every 4 years with the bumper stickers. There were pins, there were the I vote stickers. So they were the basic things. Now, though, because of 2016 and Donald Trump, really, I mean, you can tie it directly to that. Merch has exploded as it relates to politics, and it's really, I brought a visual aid. So the 1968 political campaign with Bobby Kennedy, my mom had this mug, which is horrific, by the way, the design. Jeff's gonna have a heart attack because it's so bad. The Bobby Kennedy mug. And by the way, it's tiny. You can't tell how tiny it is, but like, I don't think back then Americans drank coffee like they do now, but it's super tiny. Yeah, right. Like this is my coffee mug. But it's, so there were the one-offs, like I like Ike and things like that Kennedy mug, but now it's ubiquitous during election cycles. So what's fascinating, Jeff, I think what you're getting at, so when Trump entered the race in 2016, now the figures I'm going to share are from the candidates, the election, their official campaigns. That does not include political action committees and grassroots printers and kind of print on demand people and things like that. Just the committees, because they're the figures we can track through election spending, right? So in 2016, Donald Trump's campaign spent $19.3 million on political merch. Now, what's interesting is that has gone down significantly. So in 2020, he spent $11.4 million. This year to date, again, just his committee has spent 960,000, so just under $1 million. Why? Why has it dropped? Well, because he doesn't need to get out the messaging like he did in 2016 on who he is. People who know him, they know who he is. They know his messaging. Kamala Harris, conversely, in 1 month, so I tracked the most recent spending. So from July 21st to August 31st, her campaign has spent almost what Donald Trump has to date this year. So her messaging is not as well known, obviously, because of, she entered the race late, all that. Her messaging is not as well known, so she has had to ramp up her spending. So you look at it and you think, well, why isn't Donald Trump spending more? His campaign isn't, but here's who is. So we sent one of our young writers to a Donald Trump rally in Philly. He was at Temple, actually. And the young writer, of course, loved being there because, it's got a whole vibe to it. It's like
yeah.
So there were all of these vendors with different merch, like hilarious, funny, iconic merch, as you would expect. And our writer talked to them. And what I thought was fascinating, and they were very forthright about it, Donald Trump's campaign hooks them up with permits to sell at the different locations. They in turn give a percentage back of their merch sales to the Trump campaign. And I mean, there's nothing nefarious about that. It happens all the time. But they're generating a ton of sales because people love the merch. I mean, I think you could arguably say that, if you were a Donald Trump supporter, you're much more likely to have that merch than you are on the Democratic side. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but you just are. So all of that merch, he said it was amazing the amount of merch being scooped up by people there. Wow. So the campaign is definitely getting some of that money, and it's a smart way to do it. We will give you a permit if you're a vendor, and you're just going to give us 5% of the sales back, whatever it is.
That's great. I mean, you're literally letting people to make money, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but the whole thought process of it is it's smart. It's win-win.
Yeah. It all makes sense. It's like going to a
Yeah.
concert, right? In a venue, right?
Yeah.
This is the time that you can get it because that merch you probably wouldn't be able to find otherwise. And so
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you were saying that even though his campaign hasn't spent as much, and why that is because people know him, all that good stuff now. So I was going to say there are a ton of outside people that are doing Trump merchandise, which in turn I guess reduces the amount that he really has to because there's so many other people doing it for him at this point.
Way more than on the Democratic side, right? So but this is what you want. So this, when I say it's the gold standard, so if you're a political candidate and you see what let's go back to the beginning in 2016, the way that one red hat moved the needle for him. And I mean, Jeff, I would kick it to you. I mean, it's got to be the best commercial for headwear ever, because like I said, just by looking, if you see somebody in a red hat, your mind automatically goes to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Should I just do a Joe Biden real quick?
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
my dad has with us everywhere. So yes. Yeah.
It's kind of funny how the perception or I don't know what the word is. It's still early this morning, but how I guess more acceptable it is now than when it was in 2020 and 2016. It's just like before it was almost like, oh my God, where's the Trump hat, and then it was like in 2020 you were like, well, I'm gonna wear it, let's see what happens. And now it's like the cool thing to do, which is, it's just crazy how the trend has gone from like taboo to like, let's see if we can push the envelope, like let everyone get the Trump hat.
So I will tell you that I live in Pennsylvania, which by all measure, everybody says is the critical state in this election. So when I drive, I live in one of the suburban counties, and when I drive anywhere on weekends, I see in the parking lots of supermarkets and things, little stands that have popped up with political merch, and it is way more on the Republican side than it is on the Democratic side. So I'm not quite sure why Democrats. I don't know if they're too bougie to wear logoed items, but for sure there is it's almost like a coveted item to have. It's like when Meg, you said, or Sarah, I think you said, when you go to a concert, you want to remember the moment, right? Like you want to. I mean, there is a reason why my mom saved this thing, all the years from 1968. This god awful mug with that horrible art.
I love the art. I think it's cool.
I like the art. I do have to say, I kind of like the art, but
it's so retro, right? Like
it's so retro.
Crazy. But there's a reason for that. I mean, people there, it resonates with supporters, and people feel a connection. What better testimonial is there for promo than that?
Oh, sure. Well, and Trump, I feel like back to your point about 2016, like that's part of his brand, right? Like that's really part of his personal brand is all of this merch that he's created. And so I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this. Is there any licensing that's put in place around any of that merch?
So great question, Sarah. I can speak to the people that were set up at that event that I sent one of our reporters to. No, they were doing what they wanted to do, and I think that's actually brilliant on the Trump campaign. They're just trusting that the people who are going to print stuff are going to have fun with it, are supporters. It's almost like whatever they print is more eyeballs for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So no, there was kind of, no permissions and licensing in that way to do any of that, which is super interesting.
That's fun.
So two things really quickly. So funny you said that about Pennsylvania, Michelle. And as we all know, California is always very blue. So when I was out in California, I don't know if this is the cat is like, I don't know if you've been seeing it. She's been jumping up there. When I drove from in the Fresno area, I'm telling you, I mean, it's a lot of farms. Trump signs everywhere. I was shocked.
Yep. So I'm not shocked at all. That demographic there, that farming area.
I figured that's why. Yeah.
Absolutely. So here, Megan, because again, in Pennsylvania, the amount people are spending the campaigns in signage, and again, not just at the presidential level, the state and local level, is unbelievable. The amount of signage where I live here in suburban Philadelphia. So look, it's great for our industry. Like I said, $250 million and growing every 4 years, which is which is fantastic. I think it's a ringing endorsement for our industry as far as the power of promo.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, that hat definitely, it's a huge
Absolutely.
ringing endorsement for him, because it definitely won him that election in 2016. So my question to you is, do we have a breakdown or any idea of what kind of promo items are being used other than like yard signs? Because really, that's one thing I've noticed about this election year versus years past, the last decade or two. There used to be a lot more variation in the promo items being used. You'd see buttons and mugs, like you mentioned, and shirts and all kinds of stuff. And honestly, this year I haven't seen really much of anything except for the Trump hat and yard signs. Do you know what else is being used or done?
So they don't break that down in the campaigns. I can tell you, Jeff, anecdotally. So when we send out people to do coverage, so we covered both the Democratic and Republican conventions. It mirrors actually the breakdown when ASI and PPI do the pie chart of products in the industry. So of course, T-shirts, drinkware, bags, hats. So again, I would say back before 2016, it would have been the bumper stickers, the pins, the stickers, the signage. It's way more than that now. And it actually mirrors our breakdown of traditional promo in this industry. They basically, and I think print on demand has a lot to do with this, right? Like it just makes it so easy. Sarah, you would know this at stalls. I mean, it makes it easy for anyone who wants to get out there and get a table and get a permit if you want to be at a Trump rally to print whatever you like on whatever you like.
Yeah, and sometimes they decide to pop them up at last minute. So it is almost like you could easily produce a pop-up store if you wanted at a rally. So yeah.
Absolutely. So we have a very young, she's lovely. She just graduated college, a data journalist. Meg, she lives in Sea Isle.
No way.
Yeah. Hannah Rosenberger, her name is. And I said, can you create me some fun charts to show? And you guys can use these however you like. About the spending. And again, it's fascinating to me that clearly the Harris campaign realized, okay, we're behind on our messaging, and we're not the way that we're viewed isn't nearly as well known as Donald Trump. So what they have spent again right now is just about what Trump has spent for the year.
Look at that difference.
Yep.
That's huge.
It is. It is. I would say that they haven't found that thing, that red hat. You know what I mean? They came close. Tim Walz had that camo. Jeff, you'll know this better than me. I think he had a camo hat that was about for a minute, but it didn't hit the zeitgeist like the red MAGA hat. So they haven't quite found that kind of item yet. That's really the thing that people want to have if you're a supporter.
Yeah.
So does this data, I'm sorry, Meg, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so does this data, because when we were talking about, right, like at the Trump rallies and the fact that they pay for the permits and everything, is that dollar inclusive in here? Because part of me is thinking, gosh, he's still creating his message, right? And so that the people are doing it on his behalf rather than the campaign dollars coming from him directly.
No, Sarah. So this is just from the Trump and Harris campaign.
From their campaigns. Okay.
They by law have to report what they're spending, right? So think about, though, to your point, think about how much more is
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include political action committees, right? Yeah. So there's a ton of money flowing in here.
That's crazy.
And do we want to go to the next one, the next chart then?
Oh yeah.
Hey, actually, before we do that, one thing I'll say, like the amazing thing here is just to look at these different ticks and how much, like in just a single day, they're spending.
Wow,
it's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
I would wager, Jeff, that if we really sliced and diced the numbers, that probably around the conventions, you saw an uptick, right, in the amount that they were spending to give the people at the conventions.
Yeah.
So there were probably little bumps there.
Okay, and what do we want to say about this slide or this interactive chart here?
Well, I think the important part is no matter what Joe Biden spent before he dropped out of the race, Kamala Harris's campaign immediately realized that they had a messaging problem and had to ramp up their spend. Now, you can make the argument again. I don't know of any any item that they have created has moved the needle as far as what that red MAGA hat did. I mean, to me, that is really, no matter where you are on the political side, that really is the gold standard of political merch and what it has done. Jeff, you made the comment that won him the election. Yeah, I think it was undeniably part of the reason why he swept that election. It just, how do you compete against something that the minute you see a color red, your mind goes to a political campaign.
I mean, let's be honest. That's why hats won ASI's March Madness. You know what I mean? I'm just might as well put that out there as well.
Oh my goodness. So I want to dial this back when talking about promo. Actually, when back in my previous life when I was a distributor so many years ago, one of my customers, you guys will actually know who this customer is if you've watched the news. So since 2008, Lochelle's Bakery out in Hatboro, Pennsylvania, do these election cookies. So I did all of their promo, and actually Kaylee has been doing it since then, since I stopped servicing them. So every year since 2008, they've predicted the winner, except for the 2020 election, which was interesting. So I'll give you the stats on that. So they just did the cookies, and as of last Tuesday, Trump
but maybe they were right. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I said, but maybe they were right.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. As of Tuesday, Trump was leading Harris 12,558 to 889, a far bigger lead than pollsters have found, which is really interesting.
That's from the inception of her being installed. I mean, running.
Come again?
Was that from the inception of her, like starting her campaign, like from that time, or from the whole?
Oh, so I don't. That's a good question. I think I think she just started this, started a couple weeks ago. So it's only, it's only like she'll put them out, and then it's like Trump and whoever's going against her. Yeah.
I know Lochelle's. It's right near where I live, so it's in one of the suburban towns.
It's so cute there. Yeah, I actually went and visited her once when Kaylee had a volleyball tournament, and I was like, hi. It was the first time I'd met her.
Look, I think it's incredibly. I give all the credit in the world to people who do incredibly smart marketing like that, because Lochelle's is a very small bakery in a very small town in suburban Philadelphia. Yet every election cycle, they become, they're on the news all the time. How smart.
Yep. And she was on the news saying, "Oh, we've got cakes and donuts and cookies." I was like, "I know what you're doing." Good for you, Kathleen. So yeah, but
she said 12,000 to 800.
Yeah, well, 12,000 and change to 800 and change. Yeah, I lost the numbers already, but yeah. Wow. And that was that was like 3 weeks ago at this point.
If you guys lived here, you would see, so up and down the I-95 corridor in Philly, every billboard is about politics. I mean, this state is just being inundated because they recognize that the impact of it. I mean, really could go either way. So
that's one of the things they were talking about at Promotions East, was how people who've traveled in from other states, was just how much more like commercials and advertisements there are here, because I guess it's done
text
by
messages,
yeah.
I don't even look. I'm so afraid to click on any of those text messages though, because I just report all of them as spam. I don't care who's sending it to me. I don't trust any of that anymore. All the cybersecurity, all the phishing. Nope.
I actually have a question. So this is the downside of having an editor as a guest. So I have a question for Jeff. So during the election cycles, do you see an uptick in hat sales at a local and state level since 2016? Like, are more candidates being like, we saw what Donald Trump did and we want to do that? Like, are more of them being creative and making hats of their own?
I think I will say yes, but I don't know if I'd say it's like from a local or state type of governance, if you will. But yes, a lot of people have jumped on that, like the Trump hat bandwagon, and they'll do like their own. I know, I think it might have been Budweiser. They had like an internal conference or something like that, and they said make craft or make beer great again or something like that. So people are running on different, different types of campaigns on, as a play on that. So yeah, we do see that a lot.
So Donald Trump, Meg, I don't know if you remember this. He spoke at an ASI show in Philly, actually, when the ASI show was in Philly, back well before he was president, right? And I think it was like 2005, 2007.
Okay.
And of course, we gave him, a packet of background information on the industry, of which he read zero, by the way. However, he read nothing. However, he came out on stage and just ripped it on because he gets promo. And even back then, he loved promo. So he just kind of freestyled it as far as, how he has used it in his business and, how it really made a difference. And people loved him. And, he had Trump, with the art of the deal. There's an actual toddler as opposed to people who on this call who act like toddlers.
There you go. There was an actual one.
Yes. So he, was when the art of the deal was out and everything, and he had promo with him. He had his bag and he threw it out to the audience and they loved it. So even back then, he knew and loved promo. So it does not surprise me at all that when he announced his candidacy and came down the escalator and all that good stuff, he knew that one of the tools he was going to use was promo.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I mean, again, almost $20 million that campaign spent in 2016.
Yeah. Well, on a closing note, I do want to say, very important election. This episode is going to be published on November 1st. Election day is next Tuesday, so please make sure you go out and vote, no matter which way you vote. Go vote. All right. Michele, thank you so much for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Always a wealth of knowledge, and just love the charisma that you bring to the table as well. So
every time.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We love you, Michele.
Until next time.